as we know, the Cybertruck is about to come. It's about to come. It's now August. It's going to come in September. It looks like that it's still on track. If not September, then if not Q3, then Q4. But Tesla showed the very first Cybertruck built at Giga Texas. This came out on July 15th. So this is the first production level Cybertruck. Do you have a comment on this when you saw this? What's your thought about this event?
Well, it's nice to actually see a vehicle coming off the line in Texas. I spent some time down there on 2 separate trips over the last 2 years. Was never able to see the Cybertruck line, but the building is so large down there in Texas that clearly there is room for them for an entire amazing Cybertruck line. So one thing that I want to make sure that people understand is there's not going to be 100,000 or 50,000 Cybertrucks manufactured this year. I've predicted on other channels somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 deliveries this year, and it could be even as low as 3,000 deliveries. But then you fast forward to next year, I believe that they'll get to about 40% their total capacity at Giga Texas. So I think they're shooting for 350,000. I think maximum by the end of next year, they'll deliver about 40% of that. So somewhere around 120 to 150,000, 160,000 Cybertrucks in 2024. And then they have a huge backlog of orders. And we see that some orders don't convert. And this is going to be an expensive vehicle. So there's probably a handful or thousands or even 100,000 plus vehicles who have a Cybertruck on order. But when it comes to buy one, they either A, don't have the cash, or B, won't be able to stomach the $1,400 or $1,900 payment for, a highly configured Cybertruck, more of a $90,000 to $100,000 variant with quad motor or tri-motor or dual motor with a big pack. Because Tesla has typically led with not their highest feature, but a high feature version. So I think the early Model Ys were all-wheel drive long range were the first deliveries, and the early Model 3s were long range rear-wheel drive. So it just depends on which vehicle Tesla chooses, which configuration Tesla chooses to lead with on that.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to go a little bit more deeper on that. I'm going to show you some numbers, and then you've already shared yours. But there is over, close to 2 million reservations now. It's over 1.5, close to 2. So even if hundreds and hundreds of thousands, even a million, they still have so much. The demand or the desire for it is pretty high. But I guess what I'm curious about is how it's going to impact the F-150 Lightning, which is the EV version, and what's going to happen to the actual car itself. So some of the interesting news that came out when that first Cybertruck was released on July 15th, this is what happened 4 days later. So this is the Ford F-150 Lightning. And this immediately 4 days later, was it July 15th, 3 days later? Yeah. They cut their prices on the F-150 Lightning pickups. I mean, is that a coincidence that they did that? They cited because of increased production and reducing costs associated with battery minerals. Seem to have just been timing wise. So it's about $10,000. And then prices for all versions of the truck, including the high-end platinum trim, were lowered by at least $6,000. So pretty significant price cuts. And then what happened after that? So here's the cut by 17%. Elon replied saying, "The Ford Lightning is a good vehicle, just somewhat expensive, especially given the high interest rates these days for any kind of loan." So is that a sign that maybe the Cybertruck will be priced better? And then somehow Ford found out and they wanted to reduce the price. How did you react to all this?
For me, it always goes back to the basics: supply and demand. If you have a high supply of something and the demand is low, you have to price it accordingly. And Tesla's even done this multiple times. I think that there is something to be said about the economies of scale. So Farzad, I'm on his channel frequently, always points this out. If you have a several billion-dollar factory and you can make 500,000 vehicles a year, you can spread that cost out over the 500,000. So, all of the small amortized costs make up a smaller percentage of a high volume. So you can actually balance high volume production as well as pricing. So you either get a ton of profit up front by charging a high price, but if that starts to damage your volume, now you have a plant that's less than fully utilized. So there's a lot of costs associated with an underutilized plant. So you always just want to turn the knobs, and I'm a true believer in that. And some OEMs are not set up that way. So some premium OEMs like Mercedes and BMW, they're not trying to make 400,000 or 800,000 or a million, 5 series or 7 series. They price them accordingly to the way that they have positioned themselves in the market. And some of their smaller vehicles, like think of a C-Class or a BMW 3 Series, they maybe want to get some more volume, but it's just macroeconomics, in my opinion. So if Ford's lowering the prices, they can give some reason, but really, I think it's typically related to supply and demand. They have to move the vehicles, they need to get them in the market.
Yeah, and this is happening before the Cybertruck is launched. But I agree with you that the Cybertruck will have small numbers this year anyways, but they need to be worried about what's going to happen. Ford Lightning versus the Cybertruck. Do you have an opinion on that? Like the Ford Lightning itself? I mean, you understand what that is. You've torn down the Lightning, but you also know you haven't torn down or seen a Cybertruck, but you've probably seen one, but you haven't torn it down. What's your opinion? Will the Cybertruck? What will happen to the Lightning itself?
So your question is, what will happen to the Lightning because of the Cybertruck, or how will they affect each other? I think you almost have to separate EV trucks from the traditional EV market, because the traditional truck market. Sorry. So you've had this traditional truck market where GM, Ford, and Chrysler, Stellantis with the Ram have been battling for this truck crown. And if you add up the GMC Sierra and the Silverado, which are essentially the same truck, they usually sometimes equal more. And so they say the F-150 is the best-selling truck in the U.S. And that is true. It's more than the Silverado. But if you combine the Sierra and the Silverado, sometimes they've been 700 or 800,000 combined. So it's kind of splitting hairs. They're made in the same plant, and they're just GMC and Chevy. So you have that, but then I want to separate the EV truck race. So you have Rivian, you have the Lightning, you'll have the Silverado, and you have the Cybertruck. I believe the Cybertruck will win that battle. And then over the course of the next decade, as regulation pushes traditional truck owners out of their respective gasoline-powered vehicles, they're some of the most brand loyal people. So I think you'll actually see a significant portion of them transition to the GM product if they're GM owners, the Ford product if they're Ford owners. And the Ram truck owners have actually really strengthened in the past 5 to 7 years. The Ram products, the Ram 1500, have improved greatly under Sergio Marchionne's leadership. And really the last version of that is a great competitor from a consumer perspective, with a independent rear suspension with coils, as well as a really high feature interior. So combining them is kind of convenient for this conversation. Like, will the Cybertruck take the whole lead? I don't see that happening for 7 to 10 years, because you have to really pry the internal combustion engine trucks out of the hands of the people who use them. And I think the second generation and the third generation of EV trucks will finally satisfy all the needs of those types of truck owners. But I just don't think EV trucks right now are convincing enough purchase for someone who truly is in that minority and is truly using their truck like a truck. And I know Ford and GM, they highlight the fact that you can use it just like you do. And we had one when I was at Monroe & Associates. We had F-150 Lightning, and we use it just like we used our Ram 1500 or Ram 2500 diesel. But we are easy to convince because we understand what EVs are. But some people, it's just this fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah, I can see. So you're still very much skeptical that the EVs will automatically just overnight take down the gas cars. very interesting what you just said there. That's so cool. But it seems like the Cybertruck and the Ford F-150, there's going to be a little bit of rivalry because obviously Tesla wants to overtake them and become known as the best truck, maybe even the best vehicle. Elon has been saying that the Cybertruck is going to be the best vehicle ever made. We don't even know what kind of technology it might have, and then we'll see how the public reacts to it. But then here's this is something that they just did. Tesla did with their Cybertruck. They wrapped it to look like a Ford F-150. So it doesn't even look like a Cybertruck at this point, but they did that as, are they just trolling them? Why would they
Yeah,
do this?
I almost think it's more than just trolling. I think it's kind of a funny thing because the Cybertruck is just an angular stainless steel flat surface vehicle. So you usually use camo when you don't want somebody to understand what a vehicle looks like. So camo is usually unnecessary unless you're trying to hide styling, the vehicle looks like. So traditional OEMs will camo a vehicle because they don't want the general public to see what the vehicle looks like, whether that's a fascia, hood, headlights, taillights, things that are oftentimes refreshed. So the Cybertruck getting wrapped at all is
Mhm.
just it's for fun.
Yeah.
You're right. I guess you could say trolling. It's kind of funny and an honor at the same time. And I think it's unique that you can see the rear portion. It looks like it's a little triangle of a tonneau cover, like a
Yeah.
topper. You see what I mean? It has like the
Yeah.
little portion of the black glass, above the bed. So it's funny. And I know the frunk, that's been a big point of contention amongst a lot of people on X, I guess not Twitter, on X.
Mhm.
And they're saying it's small. And, trunks are amazing, but you look at the shape of the Cybertruck. It's a cab forward design. What I mean by cab forward is the glass and the tumble home and everything for the vision is way forward. And when you have a cab forward, you have a short hood. When you have a short hood, you just limit the size and space for your frunk unless you were able to change your dash position and where your thermal system components are. So in those images, you can actually see different pieces and parts of the thermal system are up on the same level that the Model S, the Model 3, the Model Y, the Model X are. And so you don't have a real deep space. So it seems like it's going to be shallow, but very wide. And that's something I pointed out. It looks
Oh,
wider than the Rivian and much wider than the F-150 Lightning frunk. So I
okay.
think you'll be able to put two sets of golf clubs stacked up, maybe even three widthwise. So instead of going deep
Oh,
and moderately
yeah.
wide, I think
Yeah.
they're going very wide and relatively shallow and relatively high. So I bet it's competitive, but just in a different form factor.